Welcome to the Minority Trailblazer Podcast, and I'm your host, Greg E. Hill, the culture change agent. On this show, we interview young, successful minorities in a variety of fields to educate, empower, and inspire our current and future generation of leaders. And today, I got a show for you. So I'm going to read a snippet of the bio, and then we're going to jump right into it. So he is a 35-year-old Black entrepreneur that has founded and run various businesses over the years with 4 acquisitions under his belt. And in 2015, he founded a virtual receptionist company, which is a fancy answering service called Vicky Virtual. Vicky Virtual, I love the Vicky name, which grew to 7 figures and was acquired last year, which is 2019. He recently did an interview with Side Hustle Nation where he talked about the how-to of starting a remote call center and being able to work as little as 10 hours a week and make 6 to 7 figures doing it. Man, he has a lot more under his belt. That's just a snippet of a bio. I'm excited to interview this brother. He's going to add a lot of valuable gems, and I'm calling it right now, Minority Trailblazer Nation. This is going to be another, I repeat, another Season 7 classic. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my brother, Donald Spann, to the Minority Trailblazer Podcast. Welcome to the show.
Hey, man, happy to be here. Appreciate it, man.
Hey, let's jump right into it, man. So on this show, we always like to start the show off with a quote. And I want you to share with our audience a quote that you stand by and then a story about how you apply that quote to your everyday life.
Man, that's a good one to start off with, huh? Right on the spot. I guess a quote that I think about not that often, because I'm not a huge quote person, but one that really stuck with me over the years is, if you don't work actively on your dreams, you will build someone else's. And I think that has been my unknown mantra. I really hate to say this, but I didn't become an entrepreneur just for the sake of entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. I only did it really as a vehicle to sort of realize what my actual ambitions were, which was simply not to work for someone else, right? Mm-hmm. I hated the corporate world so much that even when I had a 6-figure job, there were times when I'm tearing myself up, going to sleep because it just wasn't something for me. Mm-hmm. And so the very simple premise of having control of life and time and enough money to enjoy that, the best vehicle for that, obviously, you realize early on, is through a business. And so that was the catalyst for me wanting to have a business. And that's why I've lived my life the way I have the last really 15, 18 years.
Man, that's great. And in our podcast, we like to layer it where we start off personally, then we go to business, and then we go to future. So let's jump right in, man. Let's talk about my Let's do it like this. Okay. I have something before we even jump to the podcast. I like to stay relevant and current. So I have this thing called Find the Post. So what was the most memorable moment of last week, good or bad, and what did it teach you?
Most memorable moment of last week. Well, pretty memorable with that Herman Cain passed away.
Yeah.
And, it was the culmination of a few things. One, he's one of the most popular politicians to pass away from COVID-19, particularly in the U.S., high-profile figure. And he's in a sort of unique spot as being one of the high-profile actual politician minorities that are on the Republican side. And I am not a fan of that side. I'm also not a fan of the fact that he didn't want to wear a mask. And so I think the debate has shifted, on both sides in terms of one side, mask-wearing delegate having ammunition, and the non-mask side having ammunition. And I think Herman Cain passing away, it's just a reminder that this thing is serious, and it's something that is not to be trifled with. So, I hope that this type of thing isn't taken in vain, and that people can really recognize the dangers we're facing.
Yeah. It was there was a lot with that whole situation, man. I saw some comments online that, because even if you don't identify with him or Republican nature, et cetera, but the man really still did stuff for the culture. He did stuff, just his standing alone. And I think right now we're in a space of social media where people are just I'm like, man, the comments I saw, I was like, yeah, he got what he deserved. I'm like, he got what he deserved? For real? That's where we going? I mean, I get it. He didn't wear a mask. He didn't follow the rules. And he should be, like you said, a testament of, hey, this is really serious for guys like it. I mean, that doesn't mean, it doesn't say everybody got to stay in their house and never leave their house, but at least the bare minimum, wear the mask. But then I see the culture pile up on them. It not even, I'm not just gonna put all the onus on our culture, but it was other people as well. I found that kind of disgusting to a certain extent, man. But hopefully we can find a place in society right now where specifically the people that are high notoriety, that we can find some balance between just always just going at their necks, man. Like it gets into a weird space. It's like, well, I mean, what's the use? I don't know. I go left. I don't want to change the temperature of the podcast, man, but that's really real. So, let's do it like this, because I've learned from the first 6 seasons, and I typically get to the climax at the end, but I want to share with the audience, man. I want to give you a moment to kind of brag on yourself. I know it may be awkward, but I want them to give a context of some of the things you accomplished in the business space. So as they're listening, they don't wait to the end to be like, oh my God, like he did this X, Y, Z. Now, now. So then it gives more credence to the context of your story and the journey we're about to go on. So this is your moment, man. Just share some of your most, biggest accomplishments in business or in life in general. Before we segue into your backstory.
Yeah, so, I would say my best accomplishments, honestly, man, being able to sell a company for 7 figures, multiple 7 figures, more than once in a somewhat early career, right? I'm 35 years old, no kids yet, and being able to sort of set ourselves up for a life that I really dreamed of as recent as, say, 2014, it's great. When you think about these things in the context of living in the now, sometimes it's sort of tough to realize it, because a real entrepreneur, we're always looking for that next thing. We're always looking for that next accomplishment. But frankly, 2020 me is the dream of 2014 me. So a little bit of background, not to, dive too into it, but.
No, go ahead. Matter of fact, do your segue. Just go ahead, jump in, bro.
Yeah, man. So in 2012, I was part of a software as a service company. We were venture funded by Y Combinator, which is by far the toughest incubator in Silicon Valley.
Yep.
It was a software for landlords to have, like do-it-yourself landlords to have rental property, as well as for a broker that, has some type of emphasis on rental property. And so, we did that, and we built it to about 17,000 users and got acquired by a big company I won't name. In the midst of that, I was able to start a cleaning company. I always wanted to do something with my dad. And he was sort of a dreamer, but he didn't really have all the tools that I had, right? Smart guy, ambitious, but so he never realized the dream of having a company. So Companion Maids, our cleaning company, was something for us to start together. It was the type of modernized cleaning solution where we're not doing any of the work, right? We're hiring people. We built that to $500,000 a year.
Wow. How'd you, so you and your dad, that's huge right there. Let's stay right there for a second. So you and your dad, you're not even in the cleaning business space. You are in the software services space. Seems like you're a highly technical guy. You said, hey, Dad, let's start this business. And now you built a business to a $500,000 business. Like, let's unpack that a little bit, man. Let's not gloss over that. Like, what does that even look like? How do you build a cleaning business to $500,000? Because I know people that got cleaning business all the time. It's you got a couple staff, you got some contracts. Like, walk us through that, bro.
Yeah, so we were a residential cleaning company, and Companion Maid still exists, Chicago-based company, better than ever now. But essentially what we did was we were one of the early ones that emphasized the ability to book online. And so in Chicago, it's a big market. We did have a lot of challenges in terms of the logistics of getting cleaners on time and, ready to go to certain appointments. One of the dynamics of Chicago is that it's a lot of traffic and parking is expensive, right? Yeah. Like in the building I'm in, the building I live in, I think the first 20 minutes is like $30. Wow. So, yeah. So when you're charging like $150 total for cleaning, It's really difficult to factor those types of things in. So we dealt with some real logistical challenges that others did not deal with. But in that regard, I think at the time, the industry was a lot more archaic. And so I was able to come in, modernize with a pretty cool website, modernize with a, good branding perspective. And so we looked like we had our crap together.
Yep.
And so in that regard, we were able to stand out. And then we just hustled, man. We hustled different sort of local platform. We built our reputation over time organically, got as many reviews as we could. Then we focused and zeroed in, like really targeted our SEO. We hired a guy that I'm still friends with to this day, did a different project with him actually. And he got it to the first page for Chicago. If you type in Chicago cleaning company right now, you're going to see Companion Maids at the top. And so through that, we were able to, instead of outreaching for clients, have a larger and larger abundance of clients coming to us and just booking. And so at that point, it just became a matter, again, of making sure our logistics were good, being a good operator. And by the time the company was acquired in 2017, I didn't even have to involve myself with the business or with my dad's thing. He got a larger piece of the pie. And now it's his pride and joy. He was able to do that. And it was just a fantastic thing to be able to provide.
Yeah, man. That's phenomenal, man. And quick question with your background and stay where you're at as far as now you transition from software services company that gets sold, then you build this business with your father rather. Did you go to college?
Yeah, man. I went to Wisconsin-Madison.
Okay, yeah. My mom from Wisconsin. She's from Milwaukee, man. So I'm definitely familiar, man.
Nice, man. Nice. Yeah. So go Badgers, man. I did drop out. So,
Okay.
I went there. And at first I figured I'd go straight and graduate and go to the corporate world. But again, I realized early on that my real goal was to work for myself. And after freshman year, I took a job. I'm not sure if you're familiar with vector marketing. So
Heck, bro. Are we Podcast Nation? Are you familiar with Cutco and Vector? Yes, everybody. When you in high school, all these Craigslist ads make $20 an hour in the summer, make $25, blah blah blah, and then you go there and you selling knives. You're like, bro. So heck, yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah.
So it's a big thing, man. My first summer after freshman year, there were 1,200 different sort of sales rep that came and went through my office and again in Chicago, and I finished number one.
Oh wow!
So
okay.
Yeah, so I hustled that, and through that income I gained from that, I realized that I was making like more than a lot of people are making as sort of an entry level position, and so I already had the sort of mindset that I probably wasn't going to work for someone for very long, or hopefully not. But that solidified it. I did end up with the sales and sales marketing career for about 7-8 years, but by the time I was 27, I was full time for myself.
Okay. Wow. So all right, 27, full time for yourself. You participated in kind of 2 merger and acquisition. So you're seeing you have a little bit of money on you, but now what's the next wave? You're 27, all that experience, and now what's the next venture?
Yeah. So the catalyst for my largest company today, which was Vicky Virtual, was about a year into Companion Maids. We're already at about, let's say, $150,000 in annual run rate. And so we got to the point that we were sick of answering the phone for ourselves. And so I started to look into some options. And among the options, I wasn't that impressed. And I think of the few companies that did impress me, they didn't speak specifically to cleaning companies. And so, the entrepreneurial mind, I started to think maybe I could reverse engineer one of these things, right? So I called up one of my buddies who also had a cleaning company. First guy was like, well, I'm too busy. Second guy started right around me. He was in Kansas City, 10-minute conversation that he was in. This was the end of October in 2014. We set a launch date, which I believe was very ambitious for people that had zero experience in this industry, of January 1st, 2015.
Okay.
And on that date, we launched the company.
Okay, so walk us through what Vicky Virtual is, why you decided to call it Vicky Virtual, and just walk us through this process, because this is this component of the podcast is important, because we're going to talk through current day as far as how others can build remote call centers. But of course, and I tell everybody on the time, when we talk about experts and what they do, we live in a society where people call themselves expert but haven't built anything, right? So it's really important for us to kind of unpack this. So, why the name Vicky Virtual? And then, break us down kind of what it is on the root level, and then kind of walk us through the journey about how you went from starting it to then selling it for 7 figures plus.
So the premise, and I'll put in some nuggets here. The naming, I don't spend too much time on naming. I think a lot of people spend too much time on things that aren't actually that impactful for your business for the long run. The important things when it comes to running any business are your execution, right? Not your name. Now, the name can be something that can maybe pique interest, but the fact is, if your branding's not on point, if your messaging isn't like on brand, right, then you're not going to get far. And so Vicky Virtual was simple. There were other companies in the space, such as Ruby Receptionists and Gabbyville. There was another one that I can't remember, Back Office Betty. There were sort of alliterations in terms of the same letter twice, and then also a woman's name at the first word, right? And so I looked into, literally just brainstormed for like an hour. And the other component was making sure that potential name was available as a domain on GoDaddy or Namecheap or whatever.
Yep.
So once we stumbled on Vicky Virtual, it rolled off the tongue. And,
it does, Vicky Virtual.
Yeah, it's real easy to say, man, which is important in the sense that people are going to remember. You want something that when someone is considering you or your competitors, they can recall and say, well, Vicky Virtual was one of the ones I was considering. And because it rolls off the tongue, because it's easy to remember, and because the website is something that's easy to type in, you don't have to think about it too much, it makes it that much more easier for one of your potential clients to come back to you as opposed to one of your competitors. But yeah, it took me about an hour and a half. And that was it. Didn't love it at the time, but I knew that it fit the sort of attributes I was looking for in the name. And that was it. Rolled with it.
Okay. So now let's talk through the construction of the business. Okay, now October, we're saying, hey, we're gonna launch it. Aggressive start day in January. Let's walk through. Let's unpack that a little bit real quick, because there's people out there that they sit on ideas for years, right? They sit on ideas for years. It's all this stuff, and I'm like, man, what in the world? So kind of unpack the aggressive start date as well as how you were able to track and get towards that.
So there was a great story I heard on something called WebinarCon this past Sunday, actually. And it was a guy that had run into Tony Robbins, great influential public speaker and such. And they ran up to him and sort of bum rushed him, like, hey, what's your best piece of advice? And Tony's like, you know what? Make fast decisions, or make decisions fast. And so that's really what it comes down to, man. It's as simple as that. A lot of people do on things. A lot of people do before they make decisions, analysis before paralysis, right? The only thing that truly separates someone from getting things done and making money, as opposed to people that aren't doing things, are people that continue to act and continue to move. Because even if you're making mistakes, you're failing faster. When you fail faster, you're going to get closer to the win that much more quickly. And frankly, when you do work, you feel productive anyways. You're getting those dopamine hits of getting stuff done, right? And so you want to make decisions fast. When we were considering our phone system, my first thought was, oh, I'm going to build the system myself. Now, I was part of a software company, but to this day, I'm not a programmer.
Yeah.
At all, man. So so I was like, yeah, man, I'm looking at this thing called Twilio. You can sort of just put in a couple lines of code and you can have your agent, utilize that function, and we're going to get it done, man. I didn't know anything. And so within like 3 weeks, I realized that wasn't possible. So I started looking for a sort of call center phone software. The first one I went with did not work in the long run, but it got us going, right? So I didn't try to perfect it. I just looked for something that was going to work, and that was all we needed. And in terms of marketing, we just focused on content marketing from the start. We started putting out about our company, about what we were going to do. We put out content with confidence, right? We didn't know how we were going to service these clients until about the day we launched. Mm-hmm. But we just went forward, we kept moving forward. And so we developed the confidence in our brand before we even launched. And so by the time we launched, we only had 44 people on our email list, which was fine. But on day one, we got 7 clients. Mm-hmm. Because we had that content. We were providing some pre-launch email. We offered 10% off for life for people that were willing to go with us instead of our competitors, right? That was the incentive. And so 7 clients day one. By the end of the first week, we had 10. And then after that, it's like, we got to get to about 20 clients in order to break even, right? And I didn't want to go in the hole too much. I was only in for $500. And my partner didn't have any money at all.
Hold on. So you started this, and you only put 500 in. So this wasn't a 10, 50 grand project or anything of that nature. This was, and for context, this service is basically an on-demand call center, right?
So yeah.
Well, can you break that down for us?
Yeah. So what Vicky Virtual is, it's like you said before, it's a fancy answering services, right? So what that means is small businesses, they need their calls answered. And oftentimes, either if they have a bit more money, they'll use an in-house receptionist just to answer the phone. Maybe they'll have other duties, but their primary emphasis is to answer the phone. And then there's also traditional answering services, which everybody knows about. They're not very high quality. Those agents answer the phone, they'll take a message. At best, they might, transfer the call, but they don't provide any help in terms of like answering questions about the company, doing things like book an appointment. And so our virtual receptionist company, that's our category. That's what we did. We're willing to answer the phone. We're willing to answer questions about the company, on behalf of our client. We'll do an outgoing call if necessary, like an attorney would say, hey, could you call the county courthouse and see if they got my fax? We'll do an outgoing call on their behalf. Essentially, it feels like an in-house receptionist for a small business at a fraction of the cost. And so that premise is what enabled us to provide what small businesses really need at an average cost of like $300 a month instead of $3,000 a month.
Got you. I love it. So now you got 20 clients, or you're scaling to 20 clients. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
So the way it was we got to 10, through our pre-launch marketing and our initial email list, which is a fantastic conversion rate, right? But we needed to get to 20 ASAP, and I didn't want to spend any money on ads yet, because again, we were still validating this a bit. So I got on the call, man. I got on the phone and started cold calling. The very first cold call I made on behalf of the company ended up being one of our largest clients. They did tens of thousands of dollars in revenue for us. And that guy developed a great, business relationship with him and his brother. And they ended up they were the ones that actually acquired Companion Maze a bit over 2 years later.
So question with that, like let's walk through that cold call. Like, did you have a marketing script? Did you just say, look on the phone? How intentional were you as far as prospecting who you were going to call? And what did that conversation look like as far as cold calling?
So I'll give a quick tip about that. My approach to cold calling, I have a lot of experience with it, frankly, so that helped. My approach to cold calling is a lot of people, especially when they have a new service and they're hungry for clients, when they try to engage a potential customer, they will try to let them know all of their features. Hey, look at what a great service I'm offering. We do this, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? And the issue is that even if it is a cool service, your potential client might not need or care about all those features. And so the real approach, the optimal approach, is to engage the conversation to the point where someone's just listening to you, and then get out the minimum you need about your service. Hey, we're a company that take calls for small businesses, and then you go straight into asking questions. And those questions need to be open-ended, not yes or no questions, right? Mm-hmm. So you ask them, pretty much always question was, how are you currently handling your call answering needs? Are you answering the phone yourself? Is someone, taking the call for you currently? And then someone will answer the question. And you just ask a few follow-up questions like that, and the pain point will be revealed. And once the pain point is revealed, like, oh yeah, sometimes I miss call because I'm out on a job, whatever. Say it's like a painting company, they're in the middle of a painting job and the call comes in, they're not taking that call. Or if they do take the call, they're all disheveled and it's a terrible call, terrible interaction. Mm-hmm. So that's when we segue into what we offer or what we can offer for that client. And then we only list the features that are specific to that pain point. So now you're having a conversation that is catered to your prospect, right? And they're not hearing too much, and they're certainly not hearing too little. And then you simply engage them for the smallest next step of the process, whether that's having a longer meeting with you, whereas you can have a longer conversation with them, that you really have their attention, or you try to get them involved for a free trial. Some people did like no credit card required for a free trial. We always engaged the credit card, but assured them that we wouldn't charge them until trial was over. But the fact is, when a company was willing to try our service, well over 50% would convert after trial to become paid clients. And our satisfaction rate was crazy. Even early on, we had a retention, like a lifetime customer value or retention of at least 12 months. And by the time I sold the company, our average client stayed with us for 22 months. So I knew it was a matter of, making sure you're hitting the numbers, making sure you're making enough calls. 1 out of 80 calls would land me a client. And again, you just focus on catering your conversation to what that potential customer needs, as opposed to just trying to get everything about your service out there.
Okay. Love that, man. Hey, y'all, I hope y'all taking notes. I'm sitting here, I'm looking down on my phone, taking notes. Cause I'm a guy I usually write on pen, but I can't find my pen. I don't want to lead the interview. So, this is really good for me, man. So now, all right. So let's fast track real quick. So now you got your first client, first 20. And now how the heck do you go from first 20 clients, you put in $500, you're not trying to go over 500. And now we're talking 5 years later and that company is sold for over $1 million. I mean, for over $1 million. Like what, walk us through how the heck that happened, bro?
Honestly, it's real simple, man. And let me be completely clear here. We launched, I was in the hole for $500 when we launched the company. The most I was in the hole, though, the max was $2,800. So at one point, I was in the hole for $2,800. That was around the end of the first month. And that was the answer for that was simply because we had payroll. Now, one thing we did to sort of offset as many costs as we could, we knew payroll was going to be our largest expense. So we asked the 2 agents that we hired to take their first sort of paycheck at the end of the first month. So as opposed to, that whole 2-week thing, which we, migrated to, we asked them to take their, a month worth of work paid at the end of the month, but at the end of the month. So that gave us time to hustle up as much revenue as we could. And so we were in the hole for $2,800. Now, at that time, though, by the time, I was in for that amount, we had like 15 clients, we had revenue, We had a validated concept. We knew that we were able to service our client. So at that point, it wasn't a risk anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The $500 in a sense was pure risk almost, but the $2,800 was basically risk-free capital that I'm throwing towards something that's actually working, right? So from that, we hustled and we did our thing. We didn't spend any money on paid ads first year. Our content marketing paid off starting in like month 7.
Mm-hmm.
And in that month, we got 17 organic signups alone.
Okay.
And so from that, our organic really started to take off.
And I love it. And I love it there. And keep your thought. I love it because a lot of people, when they say, they think they need 1,000 signups, they need this. And I think I'm loving you here specific, like, 9 here, 17 here. You're optimizing that. And real quick, not to throw you off your thing, but can you speak to a lot of entrepreneurs first time, they're looking at huge numbers. They want so speak to the specificity of serving where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is, the sexy stories are going to be the ones that people pay attention to, but the majority of successful entrepreneurs do not have stories like that. Even my story, the headline is, guy starts it for a few $100s and sells it for, 7 figures. That is not the thing that matters. The thing that matters is that every single one of our clients paid us $300 a month. We retain them for up to 22 months, which that is over $6,000 a client, right?
Yeah.
It takes 2 years to get it, but it's over $6,000 a client. Now, the other sexy thing about a virtual receptionist company is that investors love it. Every single one of your clients are recurring. So a lot of companies, a lot of hustlers, they're out there, they're doing these e-commerce joints, or they're doing like affiliate marketing, right?
Uh-huh.
The problem with that is that, like, you'll find a product and you might kill it on that product for whatever amount of time, 2, 3 months, 6 months if you're lucky. But even a company like Nike, if they had the same roster of clients for the next 2 years, 2 years from now, Nike will be out of business.
Mm-hmm. So
Nike had to constantly innovate and come up with new stuff and always innovate. Whereas with the virtual receptionist company, you don't need or even really want to innovate. It's more like the restaurant philosophy, right? Yeah. Think about your favorite pizza company, your favorite pizza joint. If they change the color of the box, there's uproar.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Oh shit, the pizza tastes different. I don't understand why. So they'll be around, you know what I'm saying? They'll be around for 130 years, and they'll pride themselves on doing the exact same damn thing for 130 years. Mm-hmm. And people love that. So that is great. It's a great thing to do that, especially if you nail the winning formula. Mm-hmm. But it's also a lot easier for you as an operator to be able to do the exact same thing over and over and over again and have your clients be ecstatic about it. Mm-hmm. So those are the types of opportunities in the companies that I gravitated to. And that's why I ended up being so successful. One customer at a time, $300. And again, I'll circle back. Investors love it because it's recurring revenue. When they come in, they don't have to do all kinds of crazy things to keep things going. And the multiples on the valuation that you get, one of the largest sales I heard of when I was first starting acting in 2015, Ruby Receptionists, they were doing about $11 million, and they sold a piece, not all of it, they sold a piece of their company for $40 million. So wow. They were essentially, I'm pretty sure the valuation they got was 6 times the revenue. And so the reason they got that type of multiple, again, the revenue stream is bulletproof. A product company will literally never get that. But these software companies, these tech companies, they're getting these valuations because they're building a platform and they have dedicated subscribers that need that thing, and they're paying for it month in, month out, even if there's, not some freaking tweak or new product that happened.
Like SoundCloud hosting this podcast. Since 2014, I've been giving them every year, every month, this money, and I need them. No matter what happens, in order for my stuff to stay on iTunes, I have to pay SoundCloud every month, and there's no way around. I mean, there's ways around it, but I don't have the bandwidth to find that. So the software, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's what you're doing. That's how you build a company that has actual value, right? It's the type of company that can stick around for 20, 30 years, as opposed to the fly-by-night stuff that's sexy, you're going crazy, and then all of a sudden Amazon takes your product and starts selling it for themselves, and you just bought yourself a house, and you're in real trouble.
Yep. Because I mean, you're making 150, 250. Because I know some affiliate marketers, they making mil money, but then the roof falls off, and the next year is zero. And you have all these liabilities, and it's like, dang, you ain't pay for that cash, bro. Like, why'd you? But now walk us through, how did you make the shift from, okay, we have this, we got clients coming in, to where the freak did a multi-million-dollar offer deal, you signed away the company? Like, how did that transition go? Because our audience is always interested in hearing these stories, and people say, oh, you know the taglines, you research it. Oh, right when you go on YouTube, or you want to build a 7-figure biggest marketing, blah, blah. I'm like, bruh, I'm tired. Like, what is the context? Give me. I don't need to know everything, but give me some context, because I don't believe that stuff. Like, I don't, bro.
Yeah.
Like, you're a con man. So, like, walk us through what it really looks like.
Yeah. So what it really looks like, man, is it's one customer at a time.
Yeah.
Right. Again, we utilize everything we could to build our business organically. And I think that because we didn't want, or in some cases couldn't afford to spend the money we needed to do paid ads in that first year, my partner was actually taking a salary. Mm-hmm. So I actually started making sure that he could take a salary in the first 6 months, mm-hmm. just so that he could work full time on the business, because he had a part-time job. Plus he was doing the cleanings in his cleaning business. Mm-hmm. So in order to, be able to utilize that manpower, we were paying him like, $2,000 a month just so he could be around. Mm-hmm. But the point is, we did what we could to build a strong foundation. We put in systems that scale. That meant, when we set up anything structural in our organization, we built it to sustain the theoretical 1,000 clients, as opposed to, the 20 clients or 30 clients that we were at the time we created that. And so we did those things. There was a lot more work up front, but it enabled us to be absolutely ironclad when it came to times when we started getting unexpected clients, an unexpected surge in revenue. And that's actually what did happen in month 7. When we got those 17 clients, we had roughly 35 clients at the time and 2 agents. So we had to scramble to hire 2 more agents, because now the total call volume is outside of our bandwidth. But we wouldn't, and it was tough, but we would not have been able to do it if our systems weren't intact, right? And so in doing that, we again, we built organically. We had a strong SEO foundation. And so once the organic started coming in, we had to focus less on, oh man, how are we going to get clients, and more on just solidifying our company and working on retaining clients. Mm-hmm. Now, client retention, the average client that you have is 7 times more expensive and difficult to get a new client as it is to simply keep your current ones happy.
Yep.
And so just about all the time, the real companies that are making real money for an extended period of time, those are the companies that have clients that they're retaining for longer periods of time, and they're building their base subscription rate. So the first thing that we did was we focused on making sure that we had a strong content marketing and SEO foundation. Mm-hmm. That enabled us to really sort of get some of the organic clients that we had. So we weren't constantly focused on, client acquisition.
Quick question. Why are you going through that? Because I think this is important, because I'm a get it out the mud type dude. I'm a great marketer, but however, I don't typically utilize SEO and search engine optimization and stuff like that. So can you give real quick, and don't lose your train of thought, some tips for those that are just not savvy with SEO, but it's pivotal for the work they do? And then also too, what does it look like as far as from a cost perspective of getting a expert or somebody good on it? Because I get a lot of people online, and I don't know the space, and people, oh, we can do this, we can do that, we can do this. I'm like, well, what is the legit price point? So can you kind of run through our audience like that?
Yeah. So, so in this case, we actually did our own SEO. For my cleaning company, to give you perspective, Chicago-based, we were ranking for Chicago SEO. And we were underpaying the guy, and he'll admit it to this day. We were paying him about $1,500 a month. It probably cost about $3,000 a month to have a high quality SEO guy working for 6 to 8 months, especially in a larger city, to rank you to the first page. Now, keep in mind, the larger companies that are in like the top 3 in a given large city, they're probably paying their own SEO guys. Sometimes they're paying as high as $10,000 a month. And a lot of that $10,000 a month budget is being spent by that SEO company or guy on assets that enable that company to stay at the top of the heap. So they're doing things such as literally buying expired domains to have a bunch of traffic, and then putting in links that benefit your client's company on that domain. Those things cost money. Sometimes those domains are being purchased for like $500 or $400, $200. And so that comes out of what amounts to a larger SEO budget to be able to make those things happen. If you're not spending the money to acquire those types of assets and do those things, you're never going to compete with the guys that are doing it. Now, that's just a quick aside. So it costs about $3,000 a month for a local service business, like a home services business, painting, plumbing, cleaning, to be able to rank, to have a shot at ranking. Now, for something like Vicky Virtual, that's a national keyword effort, right? So virtual receptionist is a national keyword. When someone types it up, they don't typically type in virtual receptionist
Chicago. Yeah, it's more, it's international, because you got Singapore, you got Philippines, you got O-Work, O-Desk, you got so many different, yep.
Yeah. And so, one thing is, there's a difference between virtual receptionist companies and virtual assistant companies. Virtual assistants are more task-based, right? So they're focused on, hey, could you do some quick market research for me? Will you do this blog post for me? Will you edit this podcast for me, right? Whereas a virtual receptionist is more focused on call handling. They don't do things such as, editing podcasts, but they will go as far as, say, booking an appointment, right? And so with that in mind, again, we're focused on national. Now, the nice thing is that Google is sophisticated enough, they're sophisticated enough to cater the search to the location of that user. So if you're competing in the US for US-based companies, you are going to rank pretty well in the US if you're doing things right. You don't also have to compete with the guys in the UK and Australia. They're going to rank well in their respective markets. And so you sort of have the top players in those respective markets. But still on a national scale, again, now you're competing with a lot more companies. And so you have to do things that are that much more impactful in order to rank. So the key thing that you can do over the course of the year, Google used to put out like 9 or 10 big updates a year. Now they do like 1,500. They're putting out multiple search algorithm updates every single day. And so you used to be able to literally do some pretty shady stuff, like put a bunch of keywords on the same page, rank for the keyword. Now it's all about engaging content that is actually interacted with by Google users. Yep. So what that means is produce as much quality content as possible. Quantity will only get you so far, and frankly, and a lot of times it can actually hinder you if the content is crappy, like if you're doing 200 to 300 word blog posts. Now, if you look at the top 10 ranking businesses, especially in the more popular category, their average piece of content has over 2,000 words.
Yeah, like stuff that you can really get from. Back in the day, people used to talk micro. But now quality macro, even if done on a monthly or whatever basis, it wins.
Yeah. So again, the emphasis is not only how good is the content in relation to how related it is to that search, that keyword. It is this piece of content, how much is it actually being interacted with? Is it being shared? Is it being linked on other blogs? When people visit it, do they stay on that particular page longer? Are they scrolling more? Are they clicking content within it, or like links within it, right? Does it have photos as well as links, as well as text? Does it have video? All of those things are factors. And frankly, you got Google, they got tens of thousands of people working for them. They're going to be able to make this as sophisticated as possible over time, right? They got to have stuff to do. Mm-hmm. And so they really do consider every single one of those factors. And so again, at this point, there is no way around it. You have to produce actual quality content that's engaging, that's useful enough for people to actually interact with it. And that's how you rank.
So now, and audience, I mean, hope we didn't lose y'all there, but I think that's really critical because one thing I will say though is if you're trying to scale multi-million-dollar business, if that's in your goal, you might want to be prepared for that. Like, because I mean, they're no use to having putting $1,500 and you don't even know your user experience is trash. People don't know you can't. People don't know how to pay you. People don't know how to book appointments. So I just want to caution that, and that's a whole podcast with the stuff which we don't have time for. But but we'll get there, and hopefully your information will be in the show notes. If they have any questions, you can reach out to them. I don't know if you do coaching or consulting of that nature, but you can Google online SEO stuff like that. But I think that's one thing specifically for our Black businesses we need to be aware of, because that is a lot of times we use friends and family marketing, Instagram marketing, Facebook marketing, which is great, but people Google search everything. And if you can optimize that and you have a great user experience or a decent user experience to get people to book and you know how to close, then you can really make a lot of money. And this is structured, right? Marketing, user experience, payment structure, can you close? And those are all different expertises. So I really want to open that up because a lot of times people come in with entrepreneurship, myself included. Oh, I got energy. I got talent. I got charisma. And then you like, where the sales at?
And, the big thing, too, man, not a lot of people understand the virtual receptionist category. Before we talked, did you know what a virtual receptionist company was?
So I did. I knew it because I'm in these spaces and I'm always thinking about efficiency. However, and plus, too, I'm always like, I always get pissed off when you call companies and you get outsourced to Singapore. Like, and I'm like, bro, like, no, I'm talking to you. Number one, like, no, 0, 0, 0. Receptionists. Let me hear a voice. Don't play with me. Y'all multi-billion-dollar company. Bank of America, walk over. Y'all multi-billion. Why are you sending me to Singapore? GoDaddy. Why are you sending me to Singapore? That's why I rock with Bluehost. Bluehost has American people. I talk to them. No offense. I love people all culture. I do. Don't get me wrong. I know this podcast got a lot of viewers from everywhere. I love everybody from every culture. But I mean, there's a disconnect when I'm trying to. You can't feel what I feel because you just reading the script. So that's why I feel that my biggest thing was. And I guess it segues into where we're going next as we hasten to a close is this call center thing. So how are you now? All right, so you sell the business, right? Boom.
So I did want to say this real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Again, as you were saying, a lot of people, especially in the Black community, they don't quite know where to start. And so a little bit before I sold the company, I actually did start working on a course. On how to start a virtual receptionist company. And so within that, it's really the A to Z. And the reason I started working on the course before I had intention of selling the company, right? Because we sold the company from an unsolicited offer. I'm not sure if I told you that.
No.
I had the intention of running Vicky Virtual for 20, 30 years and passing it down to kids that aren't born yet. But one of my old business partners, he came in and we used to talk all the time about our different business projects. He's like, "Oh, how's Vicky Virtual doing?" I'm like, "Well, it's going really good. I really like it, and I might consider like what it might sell for." He's like, "Oh, word!" And immediately he's like, "Listen, dude, let me send you an offer." So I'm like, "Okay, fine." So I literally, this is how simple it was. I screenshotted him my current monthly numbers, and I think I sent them for the prior year, 2018, and where we were in 2019. And like 2 or 3 days later, he sent over an offer. And that offer was like 20% higher than I thought the company would have sold for. And so I was like, wow, right? And then I countered 10% higher than that. And he said yes. So I went from thinking I'm going to be running this thing for 20, 30 years to being able to sell the company and just being in this surreal sort of space. But again, before I did that, I started working on creating a course for this because not a lot of people know what virtual receptionist companies are. Everyone knows what an answering service is, but not what a virtual receptionist company is. And virtual receptionist companies represent a much better value proposition for small businesses, right? And so the answering services space is a $2.9 billion industry, growing at 6% year over year. And the 1,300 companies that exist in the answering services space average $1.9 million a year in revenue. So what's happening is you got answering services that have the bulk of the answering services space, and then virtual receptionist companies, which are much more helpful for small businesses, are a tiny chunk. It's starting to grow very slowly but surely, right? Ruby Receptionist, my company was doing 7 figures. Ruby Receptionist did $70 million last year.
Wow.
And if you're not paying attention to virtual receptionist company, you don't know what Ruby Receptionist is. Mm-hmm. So the beautiful thing is this is a beautiful space to get into, and I created an A to Z on how to do it. And, we'll talk a little bit about that later.
And that's still available online?
It's available online at callcentercash.com, and I'll put in an exclusive sort of discount for your listeners, man. I know it's going to be a little bit before this recording, but we'll put in callcentercash.com/Greg. And you go there, you can get an exclusive discount. We'll talk a bit more about it later.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a specific incentive for those that are listening to this and want to create their own minority trailblazing story. It's just a great business to be in.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it not today, but we'll talk about it offline, and we're gonna sex that up, man, because I think there's a lot in it. Like there's a lot in it, and I think the society and the culture is really overtaxing individuals to be more creative than they have to be as far as making money. Like I get it, you're trying to think of the next billionaire idea. It was like, well, why not get $1 million idea that's already baked out there and just do that? And then now you have the finances to undergird what you already want to do. Right. That's the key. And I had to unlock that key myself. I wasn't able to take my business to the next level until I was financially stable. How do you get financially stable? It was in that whole industry where I wasn't even the most skilled at, but it was the industry that made money. And then I be able to do well in that industry. And now my speaking career and all this other stuff took off because now I'm unlocked. And it wasn't the industry I thought. You feel me? This is an industry, a different web production. That's a whole different industry. But we been able to find a niche. And now, Mike, and I got to talk to you offline because I want me and my business partner would, we definitely got to talk offline because right now we're in a spot like there's more work than we can handle, and we can train people to do certain things, and we want to be able to scale it to a certain degree, because and to make it a multi-million-dollar company, I think we really can. Like, so we'll talk offline about it. And go ahead. I love what you said about, coming in where you're at in terms of the type of company you should be going for. A lot of people, they are potential entrepreneurs, but they're intimidated because they think that the only real way to be the entrepreneur is to have a 7-figure company. Mm-hmm. And I think, most people are realistic in the sense that they're like, well, if I could just make $5,000 a month, if I can make $8,000 a month, great. So what you do is you focus on the thing that will make it a lot easier to get you to a certain level, and use that venture as a stepping stone. And then you go towards more ambitious ventures that are maybe a bit more complex, and you take it one step at a time. We did start the cleaning company literally so, I could get my dad solid. He only needed to make like $3,000 a month to be good, right? So that's what we did. We got there in like 6-7 months, and we did that. With Vicky Virtual, I knew that it could be pretty significant, but my initial goal was to get to like $150,000 a year in profit. Mm-hmm. So once we did that, we already had an awesome company that was bringing in organic. So I didn't have to think about, what's my next goal? I had them, but the business at that point was already its own train moving. Mm-hmm. So that's the beautiful thing. I'm working on a giant project now that is potentially a $1 billion project, and it's a giant deal. But it's also the type of thing that takes $60 million in investment. And it's much more difficult to go about those types of things when you haven't had the prior experience operating businesses that work you up to that point. Yeah. So it's slow growth, that slow grind. I'm telling you, you don't want it. I mean, and I really can sit here and I want to go off but I'm not going to do it. But you don't want fast, explosive growth right now. Like wherever you're at right now, you're listening. The majority, 99% of my listeners are not ready for the growth that you really want. I'm going to be honest. and I'm not saying it in like a bad way. And I'm talking about for those dreamers that are really talking about, I want multi-million-dollar business, I want generational wealth. Like, majority of us are not there yet, right? And we're trying to jump so high. It's like, no, you jump. All right, like you said, let's replace your salary first, right? And like then backtrack it. All right, how do we backtrack to create our salary? And then once you create your salary, then you can start getting more ambitious, and more ambition will come. And honestly, to be real, once you start writing it down, it gets real practical. Like, for real, if you say $3,000 a month, okay, $3,000 a month, my skill set, boom, boom. And if you don't know it, find somebody, a coach, yourself. You hear a podcast, reach out to a person. If they say $500 per session, get $500, whatever you need to do. They'll find the answers to it. That's it. Like, if you say right now, and I'm challenging you right now, if you're listening, then you say, I'll make $60,000 a year. I want to leave this job. You put right now, grab a sheet of paper and put $5,000 on it, and then say, okay, and spend the next 2 weeks saying, how can I make it? How can I do it? And if you don't have the answers, you find somebody that is making it. You pay whatever it costs to get on a call with them. Do not get no coaching program. No, you go direct to the source and say, hey, I have these skill sets. I got $5,000. I want to get $5,000 a month. What exactly do I need to do? And do it. Right. And the thing is, here's the thing. And I'm going to challenge y'all, because y'all going to do that. You're going to go one coach and you're going to follow his principles, and you're not going to get $5,000 a month and you're going to say, bump it. No, you keep putting that investment in until you get the right answers, and then get the $60,000, and then you hit the race. You can run the race.
Right. Yeah. You're right, man. And you know what? This is another quote that I want to put in here. People, even myself, we overestimate what we can do in a year, and we severely underestimate what we can do in 10. And so, again, I think everyone says it. I think Greg's making a great job of saying this. Stay away from the stuff that fly by night. You'll see a lot of guys, a lot of women that are creating these blockbuster successes. They'll do like $750,000 in a month with some e-commerce store. And then you hear about them, like they're going crazy, you're following them. And then like a year later, you don't hear from them anymore. And there's a reason for that. They didn't just level up into wealth. That product wasn't working anymore, man. But no one's going to tell you that. So you want to focus on lasting, sustainable businesses. Don't focus on the stuff that's going to build your ego. Focus on the stuff that works. The absolute majority of entrepreneurs are people that are silently building boring businesses that work. Focus on that, and that's the key. And
they also don't tell you that, like, if you make $750, I know people that they spend $650,000 on marketing.
Right.
$650,000. Note that, audience. For some people, you see it online. How do you think they're getting all these YouTube ads? They're not free. It's a numbers game. But we get that's a whole different story. We ain't going down that rabbit hole. All right, so let's take us real quick, because I want to make sure we mention it. Talk us through succinctly and briefly as far as call center cash, kind of what you're working on now. This union. I know we talked about this the offer that we're going to have for people that listen to this podcast, but specifically, what is it? What will it do for people that invest? And how simple, and when I say simple, of course, you can be realistic with the simpleness, but how simple can it be to get started? Well, so the beautiful thing is that call center cash, again, the A to Z. When I first started my call center company, and the first thing I want to say is that you can start this business without a course. You will have some trial and error, but it's a simple business and anyone can do it theoretically. What the course really does is it takes away the trial and error, right? Mm-hmm. It's not the difference between starting and not starting a business if you got the gumption and you're working towards it. Mm-hmm. It takes away the trial and error. So the money that is saved and the time that is saved is the real worthiness of the investment, right? But again, it's the A to Z. It's what I wish I had when I was first starting the company. We specifically recommend the different software vendors, particularly the phone system software you should be using. We go through, what to look for when you're looking to hire a receptionist. We go through marketing strategies. I spent 2.5 hours straight video on different marketing techniques and such. We even do a bonus module because most of it is focused on, getting launched and getting going, getting established. Then we do a bonus module on scaling to $1 million. So that's, consideration of system, putting a hierarchy in place, having your operations manager. You got enough agents to have a supervisor, senior receptionist, that type of deal. And so we go over all those things.
step-by-step, bite-sized videos, usually like 8 to 10 minutes per video. Mm-hmm. And I think the way I talk generally, I really don't like to put in a lot of fluff. If you go into our Facebook group called centercast.com, I do a weekly Facebook Live Q&A every Wednesday. People can sit in and ask me whatever question they want, and I'll answer in depth. So the big thing, man, again, it's the course that I wanted when I was looking into this. And it is not the difference between not starting and starting, but it saves you time and it'll save you money in the long run.
Man, so Minority Trailblazer Nation, by the time the show releases, there will be a lot of information on there about it, as far as how you can sign up, what it offers, etc. And I'm really excited, and I want you to take advantage of it. Let's be real. Let's take advantage of opportunities when they're presented, because at the end of the day, life is going to be what you make it. Your finances are going to be what you make it. Your relationship is going to be what you make it. Your relationship with your father, your son, your mother, that is what you're going to make it. Do not let society, do not let outside circumstances determine that. All right. So before we go to our culture change round, which is our last round, I do got 2 questions I want to ask that I think are important. What is the number one piece of advice that you would give yourself, the 21-year-old version of yourself?
Yeah. So I'm 35 now. When I was 21, actually at 21, I thought I was doing pretty good. I was the assistant district manager of, an office for vector marketing, and we were the number 1 recruiting office in the nation. So we constantly had 80 to 100 sales reps in the room, and I was running trainings, for that whole group. And so the advice I would give myself is, don't focus on things that inflate your ego. Focus on the thing that will actually build you like a life of sustainability, a life of, an actual foundation for actual wealth. I think that some of the jobs I had sort of delayed what would have been an earlier traditional entrepreneurial path. I wish I started a little bit earlier. And again, the reason for that was because I took jobs that I thought were sexy, and I was doing things from a corporate perspective I thought were sexy, but they didn't reflect what my actual end goal was. Mm-hmm. So as a 21-year-old, you should be completely zeroed into working specifically on what is your end goal. Mm-hmm. And then when you're 21, man, a lot of time people in specific influences are like, don't fuck up, don't mess up, don't mess up. Mm-hmm. 21 is the time to make your mistakes. Do this before you have kids, before you have obligations, before you're married usually. Mm-hmm. It is the time to make your mistake. But if you're making mistakes with the right intention and you're pursuing your end goal in the formation of those mistakes, you're gonna end up in a much better situation by the time time to get married and you're trying to establish a family. You'll have that foundation, you'll have those skills, and you'll be a much better provider for your family.
I love that. Give me 1 second. So next question, man. This is a deep question, but it is what it is. When it's all said and done, man, what do you want your lasting legacy to be?
I want my legacy to be, these types of things change.
Of course. And you're gonna listen to this interview in 10 years, be like, bruh, that's not what I really wanted, right?
Yeah. As you sort of enter different phases, I think priorities change. Right now, I believe my priority is to try to encourage sort of young entrepreneurs to be able to get going and have some type of first business that they're starting earlier and earlier on, particularly people of color and especially Black entrepreneurs. I think that right now we're in a situation where you're seeing what happens when you're disenfranchised. We've been disenfranchised by having centuries of our identity, traditions, and heritage taken away from us. Even other people of color in this country at least have their traditions, their heritage, their identity, and they have their community. African-American people are isolated people that, not to say we don't have a community, but we're still establishing our identity. We're learning what is our new heritage, what are our new traditions. And we're forming the small things that allow us to band together and start to form our institution. And in order to form our own institutions, we need more entrepreneurs creating those foundations upon which we can stand. And once we have our own institution that Black people can rely on, we're shopping at our own grocery stores, going to our own bank, going to our own school, we can no longer be disenfranchised. And where, people can call us an N-word, they're not going to be able to take away what we've got for ourselves.
Man, I love that. I love that. All right, so let's do it like this. We're entering our rapid fire round. I got 5 rapid fire questions, and hopefully we can get rapid fire answers. You ready to roll?
I'm ready.
What is the best piece of advice that you have never received?
Best piece of advice that I've never received?
Yep.
Don't listen to what your parents tell you to do if you know you're doing the right thing.
Ah, man, I love that. If you can add one habit and take away one habit, what would they be?
Say that again.
If you can add one habit and take away one habit, what would they be?
So one habit that I still have a little bit is consumerism, right? Now I can sort of justify it, but still consumerism. So I would take away that as a habit. If I were to add a habit, it would be more of a focus on sustainable living, doing things that are better for the body, mind. So I think Black people are like, oh, I don't mess with nature. I don't do that type of stuff. But the human body has been exposed to the elements for maybe millions of years. And it's only been the last few hundred years that we're in these confined man-made spaces. And so I think our bodies, like literally on a molecular level, need it. And so we need to provide it.
Okay. Say less. And in question, as far as consumerism, like what are your guilty buys? Like you like, dang, I just love, if I see this, I gotta cop it.
Well, for a while, clothes, I mean, the shirt, $250 shirt, man. Like just simple things, man. Cars, this apartment. My wife, who doesn't really care about anything at all, it's like, as long as we're in a cardboard box, we're in love, I'm happy. We live in this expensive building because of me. Those types of things. And, I think a lot of us, we sort of feel like we need these things. And what happens is once you spend too much time with something that's luxurious that you felt like you need or want it, then it becomes something that you need. So it's very difficult to leave that luxurious space and have those luxurious things, like having, say, an in-house chef. Once you have someone cooking your meal for long enough, it's very difficult to go back to never having someone cooking your meals. So you want to make sure that you curb those types of things.
Got you. You got an in-house chef, man?
No.
Okay.
But I was close. I started to do it, and I was like, okay, something kicked in.
Yeah. So let's get the $1 billion deal first. Let's do that. That's huge. And side note, hopefully your wife gonna listen to this podcast, bro. We an hour and 10 minutes in. It's the first time I mentioned it, bro. I was gonna ask you. I'm like, dang, bro. Like we went an hour 20. So wife, I didn't. Hey, that's on your husband. That's on him.
Yeah,
Good.
I usually talk about it too, because she's such a great support system, man. And I think that's actually a huge catalyst as to why my trajectory actually in the last 8 years have been smooth. Wanted to impress her, man.
Now that's cool. So you 8 years in the game, marriage?
Yeah, we've been married for 4 years, been together since 2012. I actually met her about 3 weeks, maybe a month after I went full-time entrepreneurship. So,
man, that's huge. And side note, is she like an entrepreneur too, or like what's her?
She's in healthcare, so she's been dealing with like COVID-19 patients almost every day, man. And, very intense. So, yeah, she's not an entrepreneurial person at all, but she still listens to me when I'm ranting. I'll go on long, monologues. You know how it is, man.
Yeah.
And she's always been extremely supportive and just, really, she didn't understand certain things. And she got to that understanding by being such a great listener and emphasizing with my qualms, over the years.
What is your biggest fear?
My biggest fear would probably be spending all of this time and, at the end of the day, feeling like I didn't do anything. You don't even have to be specific about what that means. If you don't feel like you lived a life of fulfillment, then that's probably the biggest regret you can have.
Yeah. What is your favorite book or movie and why?
So my favorite book or movie, I think my favorite book is *Sapiens*. I've been recommending it, man. It's by Noah Uvari, I can't remember his name right now, but it's *Sapiens: A Brief History of Humankind*. It's essentially an anthropology book, and it's a deep exploration into the formation of our society, and it's very unbiased. I'm telling you, Greg, you need to read that book. Every single listener needs to read this book. It's a game changer. I've only had a few books that were like real inflection points in terms of my overall thinking that really just shifted it. And *Sapiens* was the biggest one. And it's the only non-business book that I tend to recommend. It's an amazing book.
Okay, so audience, that'll be in the show notes. Last question of the culture change round before we wrap it up with my ultimate question is, if you were the president of the United States, what's the first thing you would do?
Out anyone that Trump had on staff. The funny thing is that, and I was talking to one of my political buddies about this. Are you close to D.C., Greg?
Yeah, I mean, my girl stay in D.C., so I'm in D.C. all the time.
Okay, cool. So, typically an administration has like 150 real core people on the presidential administration staff. Trump actually has like 20 or 30.
Wow.
And the reason for that is that not a lot of people actually want to work for him. It's considered, D.C. is an extremely democratic town. And so, like, apparently staffers for Trump can't get tender dates or do anything. They're like... They're like real outcasts in the community. So the point is that they have all these consultants, and things are a lot more crazier than most people realize, even if they think Trump's doing a great job. And so the first thing I would do is eradicate those people, except maybe Fossey. And then, bring in people that enable all people to benefit so that, again, Blacks and people of color aren't so disenfranchised.
Loved it. All right, man. So we wrapped up that round, and man, this interviews gave me so much life, man. And we're gonna close out with this question, right? If you could change one thing about society, most specifically our African American culture, what would it be and why?
Well, the reality is that, and I actually got this philosophy from *Sapiens*. The reality is that there isn't really anything scientifically able to back up anything in terms of people thinking they're better or worse than other people, right? I consider myself to be cosmetically attractive.
Yeah, but, cosmetically attractive.
Without the cosmetics. But, that's a myth. That's only based off of what we have come to a consensus about as to what is more attractive, what is more desirable. And so if you can really break it down to those simple realizations, it comes down to we need to have a consensus that no person should be allowed to have more than another person. Even really with merit, there's so many people that are like, if you're lazy, you deserve to be impoverished or have nothing. And the reality is that, like, if you're alive and you're not trying to hurt other people, then you should have the necessities in life. And so if I were to change something about society, it would be the collective mindset that enables us to impoverish and enslave people while other people live a life of extreme excess.
Man.
Now, Now, for Black people, I don't want to say anything Black people really should be doing much differently, man.
Yeah.
What's happening is we are especially African Americans, are the product of hundreds of years of people trying to fuck with us.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow we've sort of come through it. And it's really been the last few decades, man, that we've been able to start to gain some footing, just have some type of solid ground to start to stand on. And the most important aspect, as I said before, not only is being disenfranchised, but having the foundation, the institutions, and starting to create those things so that we can become disenfranchised. Think about like the Jewish population. They were almost wiped out less than 100 years ago, right? To this day, there's only 15 million Jewish people on the entire planet. There's over 1 billion Black people on the planet. But Jewish people are doing very well on average. The reason for that, again, is that they have a strong sense of community, and then they've been able to say, okay, we are going to start from the very beginning, building our own institutions and having our own things that we can stand on so that other people can't mess with us. And so Black people collectively, we need to realize that and do that. But that's the only advice I would give.
Mm. So as we close, man, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving well over an hour of your time just to chop it up, man. We dug deep, we dug around, and I think we added a lot of value. And like I said, it's nothing but classic interview season 7, and we added another classic interview. So as we close, where can my audience find more information about you, your services, your products, and just get and keep in touch with you? How can they do that?
Yeah, so, I can be reached directly at hello@donaldspann.com. That's Donald, S-P as in Peter, A-Apple, Nancy.com. And then you can go to callcentercast.com/Greg. I'm offering a free 4-day mini course for those that just want to get a crash course on how to start a virtual receptionist company. And then if you want to push through to, really go after that big course, the A to Z to starting this thing, my best business out of 11 businesses I've done, then you'll get a unique discount for Trailblazers.
Yep. So Minority Trailblazer Nation, by the time this episode airs, all that information will be in the show notes, man. All I know is this is going to be a phenomenal show, man. So Minority Trailblazer Nation, you already know I need you to do 2 things and 2 things only. 1, make sure you leave a review. Share the episode with your friends that you think it add value to. 2, by this time we'll be on YouTube. So make sure you like the video. Comment under the post. If you say something negative on the post, I'm just going to block it. So don't waste your time. And also 3, I need you to do this, right? So make sure you changing the freaking culture. Good night or good morning. Peace.